My buddies and I wrote a book called Movement. It was an ambitious task, and we tried to put as much information as we had at the time in that book. But probably the way I started that book in sort of a preface, and the way I tried to close it down in the end were my two favorite parts. I started that book by giving a statement, first move well, then move often, and that statement does not work in reverse. Basically, that is so tight a statement, and it keeps me so focused on what my actual job is, that I said maybe all our principles need to be that tight. So after the success of the movement book and our systems, the FMS, the SFMAs, some of the new things we're doing, I tried to go even more simple than we were in the past. And that's a direction that a lot of people don't understand, because the human system, the human movement system, is so complex that the way we look at it has to be complicated to honor it. That's actually the opposite. There are so many things going on in the human movement system, we do not have the technology or intelligence to watch every little thing your neuromuscular system is doing to perceive and behave movement. So I think we got to go the other way. You go to the emergency room and we need to save your life, we're only going to look at a few things. What do we call those things? Vital signs. And if you got your vital signs, we start thinking, well, at least you're well. We don't know what else you can do, but at least you're going to live the next 30 minutes. In the next 30 minutes, we can look at a few other things. So first move well, then move often doesn't just mean that we've got to micromanage movement and coach it up all the time. Life moves. And as long as you've got your vital signs, the human movement system is set up as a learning and behaving system to engage totally with the environment and do what it's supposed to do. So really the first principle begs us to find vital signs in movement before we start asking about other things, like how much, how often, how big, how fast, how much can we stress movement. If the vital signs of movement are intact, don't you dare assume that the elegance of this machinery doesn't know what to do with the information that we give it. The only time it starts messing with information and making bad decisions is when we restrict the environment or make you function in an environment where you're not perceiving and behaving correctly. So looking for those vital signs of movement is actually the mission statement that sent us in the direction to find screens. Well, screens are not nearly as complex or impressive as assessments. No, screens tell you when you need assessments, and screens tell you when you can delete tests because you've already covered the metric. Screens are the way we do everything really good first, and the screen tells us our next play. If you need more information than a well-positioned screen to make your next decision, it's not a good screen. And that's the whole point. So first move well, then move often was speaking directly to a health and fitness and sports performance model that I saw to be broken. I was part of the problem because I was saying and doing some of the same unnecessary complicated things. We can't get so complicated that we could ever understand this complexity. So go the other way. Go simple, work it from the bottom. Cover the metrics that will get you to the next decision, and then cover those metrics to the next decision. First move well, then move often at least demands vital signs for movement, and I don't really know if we have them as well as we do vital signs for your cardiovascular system or other reflex systems or the respiration system or the visual system or anything. A lot of people look at the movement screen that we do and don't see the sports movement. Well, I look at the movement screen, but I don't really see basketball in that. I don't really see golf in that. Let me show you something. That's an eye chart. Big letters here, smaller letters there, smaller letters there, smaller letters there, and barely perceivable letters here. We use the same eye chart for golfers and basketball players. Why? Because they're using the same set of eyes. Do they use them differently? Absolutely. But that's the screen that tells me, are you ready to go? And if you get your vital sign of movement here, we want 20/20, 20/30, whatever is the acceptable level that says you're not disadvantaged against everybody else, then the eye chart has worked for both basketball players, pole climbers that are working in the power industry or the telephone industry, and basketball players too. Let's get through this first, and then we'll find out if you've got a visual barrier to skill acquisition for that thing that you want to do. The movement screen's no different. We're not trying to cover all the movements you're going to do in a sport. We cover all the movements you can do knowing how you're going to put them together in the sport. And if you can't cover that movement, you can't use it in the sport. That's why the movement screen's not set up to look like your particular favorite sport. It's set up to look like your operating system. And when that's broken, you're going to have difficulty in that sport, that activity, or that occupation if it requires a mind-body connection. That's why we got to do it well before we do it often. Sometimes that's not clear for people, and I'm intentionally being simple because it's going to keep us honoring this complexity.
For more information, visit functionalmovement.com.